Welcome everyone to Dick Storks and Destinies. I'm your host Chapel, and today I'm here with a kid, and
Yeah.
today we're talking about generational hate wars.
Oh yes, the topic that is the bane of my existence right now. The generational hate wars. And before anyone goes and fucking wonders what are they talking about? I'm talking about the generational hate wars where that started up, I'm going to say within the last 2 years of, the differences between the generations, and when I'm talking about the generations, I'm not talking about the oldest generation of us all because they're called the silent generation. They're so fucking old they probably barely remember what they had for fucking breakfast. I'm talking about the boomers, the Gen Xers, the millennials, and the Gen Zers, and possibly the Gen Alphas that have thrown themselves into the mix.
Yeah, I don't think there's a Gen Alpha yet.
Well, I mean, I haven't looked up what they consider Gen Alpha yet, so I don't know. But I will stick to the big four here:
Yeah.
the Boomers,
The
the Gen Xers, the Millennials, and the Gen Zers. And this all started because Gen Z started attacking the Boomers, and the Boomers forget that their great grandchildren are the ones that are attacking them, not their grandchildren.
so let's see. Supposedly, Gen Alpha is the group between or the generation born between 2010 and 2024. That's a big gap.
That's a 14-year gap. We don't even, for most of the generation, we don't even have that.
No.
So the boomers, which they're technically the baby boomers.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, you know what? Since we're talking about it, I'm gonna go ahead and just pull them up. Okay, so no, I mean this is just, you know, no one is absolutely 100% certain on these. So, uh, you've got the baby boomers, which were they're saying was born between 1946 and 1964.
Right.
So that excludes my parents because my mom was born in 67. My dad, well, my biological dad, I don't know his fucking age, but my dad, the man who raised me, was born in 70.
Yeah.
So I was me, an elder millennial here,
Yeah.
was raised by Gen X parents. Not quite sure on your parents, and I'm not quite sure on Crash's parents where they fall in that, but I'm quite certain that your parents and Crash's parents are at least Gen X, maybe baby boomer or boomer. This all started a couple of years ago because Gen Z started doing stupid shit, and then they started attacking the boomers, and the boomers retaliated. And when they retaliated, they got the wrong fucking generation. They started calling the Gen Zers millennials. I'm sorry, but I mean, I'm sorry, but there are, there are some of millennials that are absolutely fucking retarded, but not all of us. And a good chunk of Gen Z is absolutely fucking retarded.
Well, now hang on. That's not all their fault. A lot of those videos, the person in the video calling out the boomers didn't know what fucking generation they belonged to.
Right.
Oh.
So Gen Z and Boomer bounced back and forth and still targeted us, the millennials. I'm like, what the fuck did we ever fucking do? We, and this is something that a lot of Gen Xers have stated, millennials and even the little cusp generation in between there that they call Zennials, we grew up in both the analog age and the digital age.
Mm-hmm.
We were at the tail end of analog and at the very beginning of digital.
Yeah.
We understand both worlds so fucking well that we are gods in that shit.
Yeah, we're literally the generation that figured out how your microchips work. Like a lot of our generation, you have to thank for like Nintendo and well, no, that would be our parents' generation because they were the ones that were adults by that time.
Gen
Like,
X and boomers are the ones that worked in the factories that made the fucking early consoles.
yeah,
And they did figure out how microchips work, but we're the ones that fucking took that information and ran with it. I mean, I was able to fucking set up a fucking computer, no problem, while my parents were sitting there scratching their head going, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
yeah, same. Yeah, I think it was when I was 12 or 13. It was my mom's now husband who showed me how to build my own computer and how to work on it and swap parts out and stuff like that. But I've been making my own stuff since I was that age, as soon as I could afford it.
And that's the thing that I get to with this. Everyone talks about it. Gen Z and boomers, they're fucking at each other's throat. And then they're like, everyone's like, well, don't fuck with Gen X. Gen X was, the epitome of fuck around and find out. You're right. They are the epitome of fuck around and find out. But so are the older millennials.
Yeah. We grew
Because
up with those people as our parents.
We grew up with those people as our parents or our older siblings. Well, not in mine, in your case, because we are the older siblings.
Yeah.
But Crash's older brother, I'm quite certain, is Gen X. I know he has to be. He has to be in at the tail end of Gen X, because there's no way in hell that he's a millennial.
Yeah.
Not with the age gap between him and Crash. So, with that being said, no one wants to antagonize Gen X because Gen X is the epitome of fuck around and find out. And granted, Gen X is the epitome of fuck around and find out because Gen X did a lot of shit.
Mm-hmm.
They were the pioneers of the day. When they grew up, and my mom even talked about it. They grew up with, celebrities on the late night news going, it's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your kids are?
Yeah.
They grew up with the saying, children are to be seen and not heard. They were told to go out and play and to be home by the time streetlights came on. And then I sit there going, well, that was kind of my childhood too. Because I was told to go out and fucking play and be back in my fucking yard by the time the streetlights came on. Because if I wasn't back in my yard by the time the streetlights came on, my ass was in trouble.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but if you think about it like this, um, like I had a friend, and I won't say his name, or well, their name. It was two friends. They were brothers, and their parents just were like, "You come inside when you need to use the bathroom and to get something to drink, and you only drink water, and the rest of the day
Right.
you're outside playing." And they would
That was me.
lock them out. Like they would lock the door.
Well, parents would lock me out, but that was my childhood too.
Well, the reason they would
You
lock
go
them out,
outside and play. You come inside. You come inside to use the restroom. If you need to get you something to eat, get it. If you want something to drink, there's water.
yeah, and like they didn't care if they went to another friend's house and went inside there. They just weren't allowed inside their house. It's like,
I mean, I was given a house key
mm-hmm.
at the age of like 12, or
well,
might be a little bit before.
well, these okay, so these two kids, if they had had a way to get back in the house, they would have just unlocked the door and went back inside, and not left. That
Right.
was the main issue. And
Well, I'm
like,
talking about that on the fact of school. Summertime, if I came inside, my mom told me, "You've got 1 to 2 more times to come in, or and when you come in, when you finally hit your limit of how often you can come inside, the last time is the time that you stay inside."
yeah,
So I kept my ass outside a lot. I drank from the fucking water hose, so I didn't have to fucking go out inside to get something to drink.
yeah.
Unless I had to crap, outdoors was my toilet. Fucking hide behind a fucking tree and take a piss. And that's something that irks me when the boomers start talking about how the millennials can't figure this out. Oh, the millennials are snowflakes and this shit and that shit. No, motherfucker. I'm a millennial. I have tough skin. I have tough skin because I was roughhoused with by my own dad.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we had a trampoline, and I've told you this story, but our listeners don't know it. I had fucking wrestling maneuvers put on me on my trampoline. My dad would fucking power bomb me so hard on the trampoline that I would fucking spring up and fall off the motherfucker and hit the ground. And the ground, I don't know if anybody's hit the ground lately, but the ground is not very fucking forgiving. That shit hurts. And when I was talking about the house key, I had a house key for while I was at school. And I had the one golden rule that everybody that had a house key is. You go inside, or you unlock the door, you go inside, you lock it back, and you don't answer the motherfucking door for anyone.
Nope, nobody. Because at that time, you never knew who might just, you open the door, they just walk in the house, kill you, and take all your stuff. It was always assumed you don't know strangers, they might be dangerous. Assume they are. That's the only way you're safe.
Right.
I, I'm telling you.
So
Go ahead.
getting further into this, I'll go back to a challenge that we all know all too well.
No.
Yes. And it's the Tide Pod challenge.
Yeah, I knew it. Here we are.
As a millennial, I never needed a warning label on laundry detergent, let alone laundry detergent pods, to not put that shit in my mouth or ingest it.
Yeah.
Because the first time that I let a cuss word slip in front of my mother, she washed my mouth out with dish soap.
Yeah.
You ever tasted dish soap?
Yeah. Yeah, I have.
That is not a very pleasant taste to have in your mouth. Like, it takes an obscene amount of brushing to finally get that taste out of your mouth. and you remember that taste for the rest of your fucking life. Like, I know what Dawn dish soap tastes like because of my mother. Because I let a cuss word slip in front of her, and that was my punishment. So, as a millennial, I'm not going to sit there and do this stupid ass fucking challenge of putting a Tide Pod in my mouth. It's fucking laundry detergent. It is meant to get your clothes clean.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something you put in your fucking mouth. It's not something that goes, ooh, it looks so yummy, I've got to eat it.
Look,
No.
the excuse, well, I was too young to understand, only works up till like maybe 4. After that, you don't have the excuse of I was too young to understand that I wasn't supposed to eat that.
I want to say at the latest by 5, that excuse no longer works. Because, you know, as children growing up, as a toddler, we're constant. I remember my children as toddlers. There wasn't a fucking thing that they could find on the ground that they wouldn't put in their mouth.
Yeah. Well, that's what toddlers
I'm
do.
pretty sure I'm pretty sure as us as toddlers as well, we were doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Our parents, our grandparents, every human being in existence at certain ages. Oh, look, that looks delicious. Let me pick it up and put it in my mouth. Oh, that shit's harmful.
Well, I mean, you know, baby gates and electrical covers have existed for a really long time. And that was the primary source for building those things, was to keep your small children and pets out of areas that they shouldn't be getting into, and to make sure that your kids weren't sticking their fingers in electrical sockets
or sticking shit into electrical sockets. I remember as a kid that I stuck something in electrical socket.
Mm-hmm.
I stuck a key into the electrical socket. You know what happened?
You got shot?
That key shocked the fuck out of me. It got hot, and I dropped it onto the carpet, and it burnt the fucking carpet. Guess what I didn't do?
You didn't do that again.
I didn't do that shit again. I learned from my mistake.
Yeah.
And people were going, well, why would your mom let you do that? My mom was my mother. She was busy doing all her other motherly shit.
Yeah.
My dumbass is the one that took the house key and stuck it into the fucking light socket. She told me not to, and I sat there and smiled at her and did it anyway. There are some life lessons out here you just got to fucking learn from experience.
Yeah. Well, one that happened to me that I remember. And I did this when I think I was 4 or 5. So I don't know if you've ever noticed, but I get a little nervous when I'm moving like wire fans around and shit. That's because when I was 4, even as a small child, I had a fascination with things that would spin. Like, I would just love watching stuff. Like, it didn't matter if it was wheels or tires or what it was. So I was watching this fan, and I was sticking my finger inside the wires. And my mom was like, "Don't do that. Stop. You're going to hurt yourself." And of course, my 4-year-old ass didn't listen. I stuck my finger in, sliced my finger open. Because it was a metal fan. Not one of those
I know
plastic
those
wires. Yeah. So she freaked out, and I didn't need stitches or anything, but it got close enough that, it hurt me. And I always remember that now. I'm like, I don't like these fans anyway, but it's...
No, I did that shit too, except for I didn't do it with a metal one. It was a plastic one. That shit fucking hurt.
Yeah.
And yet again, just like your mom, my mom gave me the warning: don't do that. You're gonna hurt yourself. What did I do? I did it anyways.
Yeah.
Just
Why?
like the fucking lights. I mean, fucking sticking a key in the light socket,
Well, I mean,
or
why did
not
we
in the
do
light
that?
socket, but in the fucking in the wall outlet,
Yeah.
because we were fucking curious.
Yeah. Well, we were curious and we were kids and we were stupid. We just didn't have the information that we needed to. And we thought, hey, this will be, you know, I can experiment with this. And it's like, nope. That's you when you're young, when you're that young, usually that's how you find stuff out. Either you do stuff
That
and
is
either it
literally
tastes bad, it feels bad, or
that that age and doing that shit is literally the epitome of fuck around and find out.
yeah. And we've lost that.
You don't heed all the warnings. Your parents telling you no, don't do that, you're gonna hurt yourself. The warning label that says don't do that, you're gonna hurt yourself, and you do it anyways. And guess what? You fucked around. Now you're gonna find out just how much you're gonna hurt yourself. And yeah, you're right. That is severely lacking in today's age.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to dive too far into it, but I have to say that this fucking gentle parenting movement had something to do with this shit.
Yeah. Oh my god.
That and the participation trophies.
And like I think that stems from like the parents and before anyone jumps down my throat, just hear me out. I think it stems from the parents remembering what it felt like when they went through that kind of stuff as that when they were kids, and them like wanting to protect their children from that. And what they don't realize, and especially me, I've realized this recently, is that people need those kinds of experiences. They need that negative reinforcement in their lives, or they're not going to be ready to handle when shit really hits the fan. You know,
I agree.
like
I mean,
the
I
participation
wanted
trophies. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I wanted to protect my kids as much as I could while they were growing up. But I also knew that no matter what I said or what I did to prevent them getting hurt, they were going to get hurt. All I
Yeah.
could do was just be there for them when they got hurt, explain to them why they got hurt, and hope that they understood why they got hurt. I mean, it's not like I wanted my children to take a fucking key and stick it into the fucking wall outlet and get shocked and burnt and hurt that way. But there are, like I said, there are some lessons in life that you have to learn and learn from.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of this
And
information, a lot of this experience that you get from the or that you used to get is no longer available in the information age. Now the information is just there. It's just assumed that you will go and find the information.
well, I mean, with that too, just like you were about to talk about with the participation trophies, I find that shit absolutely fucking asinine.
Yeah.
You're gonna give a kid a trophy participating in something so that their feelings aren't hurt because they didn't win first, second, or third place prize. There was a lot of times me growing up that I didn't win first, second, or third place prize and shit. It
Well,
hurt,
well, you know what that.
but I fucking got over it.
Well, you know what the pain of that does? It motivates you to do better.
Right.
So either they continue their interest in whatever it is that they they're upset that they didn't do as well as they could have, and they practice and get better and do better. And
not giving everyone a participation trophy that either gave you one of two things to do. It's either going to motivate you to step up your game and do better and work harder and so on and so forth because it is an interest of you, or you are just going to absolutely drop it and not fucking go back to it because it was never really an interest to begin with. It's what helps define who you are.
yeah.
And I have failed multiple times in life, and that is something that I can tell anyone, including if we do have any younger generations listening to us. You're not special. You are going to fail
A
a
lot.
lot. And don't let the failures define you.
Yeah.
Get your ass up, dust yourself off, and fucking keep going.
Or hell, better yet, let some of the failures define you. Let some of the more funnier failures be part of like a learning lesson that you remember.
I mean, even though they say that he stole the idea, Thomas Edison invented the light bulb.
Mm-hmm.
The man even stated, I never failed. I just found 999 ways of not to make a light bulb.
Yeah.
He didn't let his failures keep him down. And you're right. Let some of your fucking failures be part of who you are. Because that's what also helps make your personality and build your personality and build you into the person that you're going to become. A lot of my mishaps and accidents are fucking downright fucking hilarious because it was spectacular.
Yeah.
When it happened. Crash and I have talked about it all the time, where we took aerosol cans and threw them into a bonfire at my house late at night. Oh, I wonder what this. We knew what it was going to do because as a kid we've already done it.
Yeah.
But we wanted to know just how explosive it's going to be. And Crash is right. We went and bought a full can of Lysol spray. Yeah. And I had a bonfire going at the house. What did we do? We chucked the whole fucking... We didn't spray anything out. We just chucked the whole fucking can in there.
Was I there for that one? I think
no,
I was...
you weren't.
Okay. Ping.
And boom. all we heard was bink. And then boom. And I'm like, oh, that was bad. Maybe we shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
That was because when it went off, it sounded like a gunshot. And my mom came out of the house and said, "What the fuck are y'all doing?" I'm like, science experiment? She goes, "It's fucking 2:00 in the morning. Knock it off."
I'll be Crash for this. Nothing.
That's exactly what Crash said. Nothing. And that's a funny story that Crash and I have, and we've shared multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
And just like how he and I became friends, it's a funny story because I got him in trouble. And he'd broken his middle finger on his right hand. And that was he's right-handed, so that's how the hand that he had to write with. So while holding a pencil, he couldn't fucking bend his middle finger down to hold the pencil. He had to hold the pencil with all the other fingers. And I raised my hand in class, told the teacher that he was flipping me off. And she got onto him. And guess what? The whole class laughed because he literally still held the pencil, looked at the teacher, and said, "I can't help it. My finger is broke." And the whole class died laughing.
Yeah. Oh, what things we do to make friendships.
And I mean, everybody in our social circle has heard that story
Mm-hmm.
multiple times.
Yeah. Well, it's
My
like,
wife has heard that story so much that she's like, I don't want to hear that story anymore, but it's still funny.
yeah. You just gotta spread the stories out. But the thing is like, okay, so I think, like, a lot of the stuff comes from, like, the participation trophies, for instance. I think that came from when some of the people in the boomer generation were, when they didn't feel right about not being included, not being the very best, but they still, not only did they try, they did really good. Like sports teams, for instance, they would be upset that they didn't get MVP, but they worked their ass off that the entire season and still made an effort. So they wanted to do something to alleviate that. But the thing is that feeling that motivates you to be the MVP. You're going to work with your team, but you're going to be out on your own. Practicing on
I
your
mean,
own.
at that point, it goes into if at first you don't succeed, try and try again.
Yeah. Well, it's like, when my younger brother was playing baseball, like, he didn't just practice at the practices, he practiced at home. My brother was one of the very few people in, like, what, fifth, fourth, fifth, and sixth grade, maybe even younger than that, maybe right out of T-ball. He could play every position on the field. He could play all the outfield positions. He could be pitcher, catcher. He could do first base, second base, shortstop, and third. And he was on the All-Star team for his years. I want to say 4 years in a row. To the point where every year we just got to know, we just, whenever we would play another team, half the time we knew half the other team, and
Right.
like if I didn't have a game on my own, I would go and visit the kids from the other team because I knew them. It was definitely interesting. Um, but yeah, no, and that kind of motivation is what motivates you to push yourself ahead of your peers, and we need that motivation in our lives. Otherwise, we're just gonna sputter out. That's why so many people who these days who fail don't they don't bounce back from it. They just kind of let it consume them. They might they might not let it. They might not obsess over it. Like, after a while, they might get over it and start working on something else. But they don't go back and put in the effort to whatever it was they first failed at to really get through, to really push themselves to be, like, above and ahead of everyone else around them.
Yeah. Failure is a part of life. It's going to happen. You've got to fail before you succeed. As much as we would all like to just succeed without ever failing, you're going to fail before you truly succeed.
Yeah.
I mean that like I said, that's also into the part of this is the reason why I get so irritated with this fucking generational hate war that we've got going on. And yet again, no one wants to fuck with Gen X. Well, that's because Gen X is what we consider the fucking feral generation.
Yeah.
They were wild.
Yeah, that's my
It was
parents'
it was
generation,
it
and
wasn't it wasn't uncommon for a group of 10 of them to get together on their bikes on a weekend and travel around town, ride miles and miles away from their home, do a bunch of sketchy, stupid shit,
mm-hmm.
and then be back home by the time the street lights come on. Our
Yeah,
generation, like I said, we grew up in the tail end of the analog and the beginning of digital. So we aren't as feral as as Gen X, but we are we've we're like the fucking Vietnam War vets. We've seen some shit.
yeah. Well, it's
We
like,
are traumatized by some of the shit that we've seen.
yeah. Well, and the thing is like, so when I was a kid, and when I say this, what I mean, what the age I mean is when I was like starting at like 13, 14, like when I would get in trouble because I hated being outside. I didn't like it at all. I loved being inside playing video games or watching movies. So when my mom would punish me, she would kick me outside. So then I would go out into the woods. I'd walk around in the woods. We had a creek behind our house a little ways, and there was always like copperheads and water moccasins and rattlesnakes. But I'd go out there anyway, scare my mom to death because she didn't know. You know, she would watch me like a hawk. She would be like that. Go outside, but where I can see you. Don't leave
Yeah.
my sight kind of parent. And so I would do that, or I would go play basketball outside because my dad he gave us he actually built us well, first he bought us a basketball goal, and then after my grandmother ran it over, um, he built us another one in a different area. So the first one he built was at the like right by the house in the driveway,
Mhm.
and then the next one was at the end of the driveway, like by the road, because we lived in a cul-de-sac, so we could kind of just get out of the way of cars whenever they were there. And what would end up happening was we wouldn't be bouncing the ball, like shooting and it would bounce and hit a car or something. We didn't have any problems
Right.
like that anymore. So one of the things I remember as I got older was, and this especially happened after my parents split up. Like I decided I'm going to go on a walk, and you got to understand at at that point after getting to be 14, 15, um, I had hung out with my friend um, Mike for years. And the first time I ever hung out with him and stayed the night, I think it wasn't that weekend. It was the following time I went and hung out. Like it was like, hey man, let me show you something. And just he lived in a trailer park, but he was like, let me show you something. I was like, okay. And he was like, look at this. And it was a 357 Magnum, and he was hanging on to it for one of his friends that was a drug dealer because he was in some hot water and he needed a place to hide it. So he had it hid over at Mike's house, and he was just showing me it. And that was the same one later that same drug dealer stuck in my face and asked me if I was a snitch. Um.
Mhm.
So after I'd been hanging out with him for a couple years, and for our listeners, that happened when I was like 11 or 12. So like later, when when I was like 14, 15, I was like, I'm just going to go walking. So I would walk from my dad's house to the railroad tracks, which is like, I think, just under a mile. And for your sake, kid, I'm talking about my dad's place.
Oh, I know your dad's place.
Yeah. So I would walk from my dad's house to where those railroad tracks are,
No,
um,
I know where those railroad tracks are too. So,
and I would walk those tracks up to the next road, which was I think 3 miles away. It was like 3 miles as you walk the railroad tracks, and then I would walk from that road back up to another road, and then back to my dad's house, and it would take roughly maybe 3 or 4 hours.
hmm
I was tired by the time I got done, but I had gotten plenty of exercise and had plenty of energy left over after that.
I mean, hell, I used to do the same.
Yeah, and I would make that walk by myself, or sometimes my little brother would come. He would come with me.
I mean, where I grew up at, uh, there wasn't really anything around. I lived in a place that was surrounded by a bunch of farms,
Mm-hmm.
and my dad's parents, they didn't live that far. They lived a good ways away,
Yeah.
but not that far away. And depending on which way you walked and how you went, you could be there. We took off from my dad's parents' place. He and I did.
Yeah.
Well, him, myself, and I think his nephew, which is not really my cousin, but my cousin. We'll just call him my cousin for sake of the podcast. We took off walking from there, and we followed the creek because the creek that we followed led back to where we lived at, and that was like fucking like 8 miles
Yeah.
that we walked along the creek, in the creek, through the creek, around the creek, over the creek, everything for 8 miles. And that was exhausting as fuck. There were countless times, me as a teenager, where I would tell my mom, hey, I'm going to go to so and so's house. Well, so and so's house was, when you left out of where I lived at, you'd take a right.
Yeah.
You would go all the way down to the four-way stop, which is about 3 miles. And then from that four-way stop, I would take another right and go another 3, 4, 5 miles to get to where my friend lived. I did that shit a lot. I mean, just like you, I got plenty of fucking exercise as a kid. It's probably the reason why I don't like exercising now.
Yeah. No kidding.
I exercised myself out. I'm done. And I mean, that's the thing too with all this. Us talking about all this shit. That's what irritates me still with the whole generational hate wars that we've got. As a millennial, we did a lot of shit, and we did some of the same shit that Gen X did. And yeah, you could view some of the shit that we've done as completely stupid. But that's the thing, is we were kids while we were doing it. And a lot of people's like, well, you don't. A lot of people, I'm pretty sure you don't know how to use a rotary telephone. Motherfucker, I had a rotary telephone in
Yeah.
my house.
Yeah. We had grandparents. Our grandparents had rotary telephones.
Huh. My grandparents had rotary telephones. I know how to dial a rotary telephone. I know what a fucking butter dish looks like.
Yeah.
I know what a lot of this shit is in this world that are now considered antiques because I was told, don't you touch it.
Yeah. Or hey, this is what this is used for. Or, when I was your
Ask the
age,
question.
we didn't have a bathroom in the house.
When I was your age, I walked uphill both ways to school and back home
Through the
in
snow.
3 foot of snow.
Yeah. In the middle of summer? No, we didn't have some. We didn't go to school in the summer. Damn.
I'd come home from school and put my stuff away and change out of my school clothes and my play clothes and go to work.
Yeah.
Great.
Man, and I
So, I
remember,
mean,
I remember getting,
I'll,
or, sorry, go ahead.
oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I remember that key moment when you stop being a kid and you go to being an adult. It's when you
Right.
get your first job. You know, it's like suddenly, you know what it's like to have money and want to spend it, and have stuff that's your own, and you're able to take care of, do stuff on your own. And that feeling of freedom is wonderful. The problem is that you don't have the discipline at that point to. Well, not only do you not have the discipline to like keep, be consistent at work for the most part, and
Right.
but you also don't have the wisdom of, hey, I need to not, spend my money this way. I need to spend my money a different way.
That's the thing is that sense of accomplishment and everything else that you get. You know, my kids are Gen Z.
Yeah.
They were born in 2007 and 2008. They asked me, "Well, Dad, what was your first cell phone?" I was like, "I didn't get my first cell phone until I was like 17, almost 18 years old." Well, weren't cell phones? I said, "Yeah, cell phones were a thing, but before the cell phones, there were pagers and beepers."
Yeah. And not just that, but cell phones were expensive.
I said, "My first," and I know my first cell phone, so I'm just going to say it. My first cell phone came from brought to you by the lovely company known as Track Phone. And it was the Nokia. I
Yeah.
don't remember what model,
I
but it
had a
was
Nokia.
it was the Nokia.
I had a Nokia too. That was my first phone. And it was a tiny little one.
And
It was maybe 2.5 inches like long, top to bottom. The screen was tiny. It had tiny little buttons, and the best thing about it was it had flashing lights on the side. I was stupid as a kid.
and I bought that Nokia with my own money.
Yeah.
I paid for my phone service with my own money. Our cell phone service at that time wasn't a monthly plan.
No, it was
It
minutes.
was
Like you.
it was pay by the minute.
Well, not just that, but
You would go to the store and buy a card that had
mm-hmm.
20 minutes on it, or 10 minutes on it, or 30 minutes on it, or at the most 120 minutes. 120 minutes is 2 hours.
Yeah.
Should I carry on phone conversations longer than the minute cards?
Yeah. No, like my first phone was that little Nokia, and
Mm-hmm.
my mom was on a payment plan. She was on a monthly payment plan, but she had a limited amount of minutes she could use a month for our entire family.
Right.
She had me, my brother, and her on the plan. And I think we had a maximum of 300 minutes for the entire month for the three of us.
300 minutes for 3 people. That's 100 minutes per person.
Yeah.
That's barely over an hour and a half.
Yeah, that's what, an hour and 40 minutes.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and that's an hour and 40 minutes for each person. That's not very long. It's not very long at all. And then when people were complained about it enough, they finally were like, "Hey, after 9 p.m., because nobody's up after 9 p.m. After 9 p.m.,
After 9 p.m.,
you
you got
don't.
unlimited free minutes.
Yeah, you have unlimited free minutes, and that's what started this whole like we're gonna stay up all night kind of trend.
That's what started with our generation, where we fucking where we answered the phone during the day and Crash and I did this shit a lot. Hey, call me back after 9 when it's free.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
stayed up till 9 o'clock at night just to make that phone call. And we could sit and talk for hours because it was fucking free. And then, later on down the line, cell phone companies like, okay, well, let's do away with the monthly minutes and the monthly minute cap. Let's give them unlimited talk.
Yeah. But you still got to pay for texting.
And then you still pay for text.
Yeah, you got to, what was it? You had a limited number of text you could send. And then after that,
they charging you 10 cents per text message.
Yeah. And then that's if you were lucky. Some plans were like, after you run out, we're going to charge you 10 cents like per word or something like that.
Right. Some text message. That's the reason why we fucking got creative with shorthand.
Yeah.
And text messages.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is, my kids, well, what apps were on your phone? We didn't have no fucking apps. I said my phone was only designated to do two things: make phone calls, or make and send phone calls, and make and send text messages.
Yeah.
I received text messages as I received phone calls. That was it. Send and receive phone calls, send and receive text messages. Yeah, my Nokia had a game on it.
It was
And
Snake.
most Nokias were preloaded. most Nokias were preloaded with 1 to 2 games, and you just mentioned one of them.
Yeah.
And that was Snake, where you use the keys 2, 4, 6, and 8 to move that fucking snake up, down, left, right.
For as long as you could.
For as long as you could until you hit that invisible wall, or you hit part of your body while you were trying to eat what this little dot blob that they called an apple.
Yeah.
And every time you ate that little dot blob, your snake grew. So it made it more difficult to keep from hitting your own body, your tail, or hitting the invisible wall. The other preloaded game was Tetris.
Yeah.
Yet again, 2, 4, 6, 8 was all you used. I think 2 did something. 4 and 6. Oh no, 2 rotated it. 4 and 6 moved it left and right, and 8 moved it down faster.
Yep.
That was it.
Yeah, that's all the games we had.
That was the only games that we had. We either fucking played Tetris or we played Snake. There was no TikTok, there was no Facebook, there was no Instagram, there was nothing.
I don't even think we had YouTube back then.
No, we didn't. YouTube didn't come in till after the cell phones, but we couldn't do YouTube on our phones. We had to have a fucking laptop or desktop computer.
Yeah.
To sit and watch YouTube. And when we sat and watched YouTube, it was just music. There was nothing else.
Well, there wasn't like big channels or anything like that, but there was
Shinedown dropped a new album. They gave us a couple of music videos of that new album that we could watch.
Or the anime music videos. or
Right.
just clips of like really cool anime that we were watching at the time. Dragon Ball GT was really big at that point. And yeah, the face of YouTube at that point was totally different than what it is now.
Well, I mean, YouTube used to have a rating system where you gave something 1 to 5 stars. Now it's
Yeah,
thumbs up or thumbs down.
yeah, and you can, unless you have like and I don't know if you knew this or not, but there's an app you can get for your browser that'll show you how many thumbs down it has. Uh, I got that for a podcast actually, so I could, if we were checking out a video on YouTube, I could see how many thumbs down it has.
I
But
mean, that's the thing with this whole with the generational hate wars is everyone is on everyone about some stupid ass shit.
yeah,
And like I said, my kids are Gen Z, and it's the reason why I got into the cell phone tangent. My kids, the first time they ever seen a payphone in their life was about 3 years ago. We were on vacation, and where we were vacationing at, we went to this little tchotchke gift shop.
mm-hmm.
And inside that shop was a fucking payphone. And the payphone worked.
Yeah.
And my kids were like, "What is that?" I said, "That is a payphone." "Well, what is a payphone?" I said, "That is a phone where you put money into it and made phone calls."
Yeah.
"You had to give the phone money?" "Yeah, we had to give the fucking phone money."
Yeah, and you only had a limited amount of time. Like I think it was like 5 minutes or something.
And they're like, "So what did you do?" I said, "For that payphone, if I needed to get a hold of your grandparents while they were at home, I used 1-800-collect."
Yep.
"Well, I said, the numbers have letters.
Yeah.
So you would spell out collect, which was COLLECT. I said, go to the number pad, COLLECT. The 1-800 was the toll-free part.
Yeah.
I said, you would place a click call to the number that you're trying to reach. You would say, and there's a commercial that I've seen here recently. And it was a guy in a hospital who had him and his wife just had a baby, and he called his parents through 1-800-collect. And I don't remember his first name, but I'm just going to say his name was Ryan. And he said, "Ryan, we had a baby. It's a boy." And the 1-800-collect took that message and said, "You've got a collect call from Ryan. We had a baby. It's a boy. Do you accept charges?" And the dad goes, "No." Click. And his wife goes, "Well, who is that, dear?" He goes, "Oh, it was Ryan. They had a baby. It's a boy."
Yeah.
That's what we did. We gave out our name and the message as a attempt in the collect call to get a hold of someone.
Yeah. Sometimes you just had to go to the collect call. They had to accept the charges because it needed to be a full on conversation. It wasn't just like a
Right.
one sentence message.
If you had a 1-sentence message, you use that method. If it wasn't, like you just said, you had to accept the charges for the collect call.
Yeah.
And with the whole cell phone thing, and my son's like, "Really? I said, "Yeah. You have no idea what cell phones used to be like."
Yeah. Or how expensive they were. Like
I said,
we have had cell
I
phones
used
since
to,
like the 80s, but those were monstrosities. They were huge, enormous things, and They didn't do anything but make phone calls, and they didn't have screens, and they cost like, I think it was like $130, like
Yep.
for every call you made. Not only that, but like a lot of people will be blown away by this. Most people don't remember. There used to be like, if you had a really fancy car, it came with its own phone.
It came with a car phone.
Yeah, car phones used to be a thing, and that was for like
Our
business people and
telephone and
stuff.
cell phone, our cell phone and telephone technology came from the fucking military.
Yeah, well, you gotta have good communications to.
The bag phones were from the military. The surplus of those were used by the general public.
Yeah,
And then, like you said, the fancy cars had their own phone to it. The movie Pretty Woman shows the first old fucking cell phone.
yeah,
The big ass block shit. Even fucking the TV show Saved by the Bell showed the fucking original cell phone. That big blocky motherfucker with the big black antenna.
yeah.
That was literally the first cell phones.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen,
So,
go ahead.
so with all that being said, I got into it a little bit. The baby boomers were 1946 and 1964. Gen X was 65 to 80. Millennials were 81 to 96. Gen Z is 97 to 2012. If anybody was listening there are almost 50 years in age difference between all the generations.
Yeah.
Just because you grew up in the generation that you grew up in doesn't make you superior to the generation that comes after you.
But God, you feel
And
like it sometimes.
for the younger generations that come after, like for us, it's the Gen Zs.
Yeah.
As a Gen Z, you all don't know everything. You all won't ever learn everything, and you all won't have the amount of knowledge that we have until you reach the age that we are currently. And I'll admit it, I'm 40. That's how old I am.
Yeah. I'll be 40 this year.
You'll be 40 this year. Crash
Yeah.
will be 40 this year.
Yep.
So if we have any Gen Z listeners, we're at least 20 years older than you. We've got over 20 years more experience in this world than you. And, to end this generational hate war, I am all for the laws of Darwin. Let the strongest survive. We need to stop putting warning labels on everything and let people fuck around and find out.
Yeah. People need to be held accountable for their own actions. But that's kind of like what I was saying with damn it, now I forgot. That's kind of like what I was saying with the Generation Alpha. Like, a lot of this stuff that they do, just it doesn't make sense. And if anything, just a piece of advice: there will always be certain truths that will always be the truth and always be correct. It'll always be that case no matter what happens. One of those is things always change. Another one is you can't depend on anyone but yourself. And finally is if you want something, it's your job to get it, not someone else's.
Yep.
Oh, lastly, nobody gets a free ride. Nobody gets a free ride.
There's always a cost.
Yeah.
Even if you don't ever see it, there's always a cost.
Well, guys, I think that's going to be it for this episode of Dick Storks and Destinies. We appreciate everyone who has listened and has made it to this point. Kid, do you have anything you'd like to send us out on?
Episode is brought to you and sponsored by Equal Opportunity Insurance, where your privacy is our policy. And a little addendum to our policy is fuck around and find out.
Yeah. Thank you all for listening. We hope you have a wonderful day.